Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Alpha 4.1.1 is now out to Wave 4 of the PTU. It looks like it's going to go to Open PTU shortly, if not already by the time you see this. We've got a couple of patch notes on that latest 4.1.1 patch. Fleet Week is also creeping up on us, and CIG put out a Star Citizen Live episode talking about the evolving story events, factions, and missions that are ongoing in the verse now and for the rest of the year. Let's jump into some summaries. Wave 4, PTU 4.1.1. So with this, they've made changes to some pyro outposts to sell salvage canisters. They've replaced the Idris with the Polaris for the high-level ambush missions, which means less chances to steal an Idris and fly them around. Is this an indicator that they're not going to release the Idris at Fleet Week? We don't know. There was only a rumour that it was going to turn up anyway. Obviously, the Idris is a lot further along than people sort of had realised in terms of being flyable by players, but we'll have to wait and see. They've adjusted the flight tuning of the RSO Polaris as well to give it a greater sense of size and mass, aligning it more closely with its intended role as a capital ship. They've disabled proximity assist by default. There is a major bug. There's a variety of bugs and critical bugs and stuff that they are trying to solve, known issues, but there's a blocker bug, quantum travel no longer aligning and spooling. Obviously pretty major if you're trying to traverse around the verse. It looks like that this patch might go to wider PT for the weekend, potentially, as I said, by the time you see this, but it's going to be based on, in my opinion, if they can squash or at least mitigate that quantum travel bug. We also found out that next week we're going to have a BTS episode of Behind the Ships. It's going to be the first ship they're revealing that's coming with Fleet Week, so I'm actually very excited for that. You can expect Fleet Week probably around the 16th-ish of May to start anyway. So yeah, we had a Star Citizen Live Q&A, the story so far. Let me go through some of the questions and answers in sort of like a bit of a summary. Are there any plans to integrate the Galactopedia into game? Yes, in the future. It's going to require feature and UI work, and those teams are working on other stuff. This year is more about playability than new features like that. Once a load of the planets in Pyro is supposed to be strip mines, what's happened with that? Star Citizen's an alpha, that actually got retconned for gameplay and better fitting lore purposes, and the fact that a load of the planets in sort of Pyro were strip mined, that was written before Planet Tech became a reality, which has allowed for more points of interest and reasons to visit planets. The regen crisis, what's happening with that? Imprints for the general populace, the sort of in-lore NPCs, they're not as safe as they once thought. They thought they had conquered death with the regen tech, but it appears that only certain people take the imprint well. Sometimes it might only work once or not at all. So the regen crisis is the current main B story arc that's unfolding in the game. Players will be directly involved in that as the story unfolds. The UEE is working on solutions, but Star Citizen is limited to Stanton and Pyro at the moment, so obviously lots of stuff's going on technically in the background. Why doesn't the regen crisis affect the players then? Imprints take well to the players is the idea in lore. Also, more metagame wise, they need to be able to respawn. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time in the alpha. Is the regen crisis a precursor to Death of a Spaceman? Death of a Spaceman is coming in the future at some point. Why focus on storylines while the game is still in alpha? Will these stories and missions repeat after 1.0 of the game's released? Working on the missions and putting missions in game and events now enables CIG to test out and get better at making events and missions. Mission parts will be reused though. Some things like a line of mine are going to be permanent or semi-permanent additions, as is like Wicklow. Other story events may be one and done, but the elements of supply or die can be used for other missions in the future. So nothing's lost, and players are encouraged to play from patch to patch for loot and the experience and say that they were there during this story event. Is the current respawn issue in 4.1 part of the B story, or is it a bug? It's a bug. Why have we got Wicklow in game? Why have we got the first Banu in game now? Let me talk about Wicklow's arrival. He's the first Banu we've had in game. He's an expatriate of the Banu Protectorate. He's divested from his Soli. He loves humans and their culture, so he's set up shop in the Stanton system. He's pretty eccentric even for a Banu. Some of the items he asks for might seem peculiar or simple, but that's what he wants. It's either because he wants to trade for them, he wants to eat them himself. He doesn't seem to want to pay for things, he wants to trade and barter for them. Also, from CIG's point of view, he's kind of a test for crafting and recipes. He's a similar gameplay loop. So you get materials, do missions, turn in things, and he gives you other stuff. He basically makes what you give him into something else. So very simple version of crafting, but a similar loop. Dev-wise, he is a head and torso behind a desk at the moment, but they will eventually have him fully wandering around as a Banu. What Wicklow is after item-wise is going to change from patch to patch as well. Typically, that will be linked to what's new in a patch or something like that. At the moment, in 4.1.1, he's after script, which can be found by looting, but also as mission rewards. Often stuff that he's after, other people will be after as well. For 4.1 and A Line of Mine, does helping Wicklow and giving materials from A Line of Mine to Wicklow hurt Riari trying to research the sort of regen crisis? Is that a morally bad decision to give stuff to Wicklow, and will it affect the player in the future? So it's not going to permanently affect your morality or anything, or your reputation, but it's a choice where to hand your materials in. Do you help humanity or get some loot? Why not both? That's what I say. What's happening in Pyro now with the 3 factions? Frontier fighters, they want to wipe the Pyro system clean. They pretended to be the slicers and staged an attack on Stanton to rile up people to invade and wipe out Pyro. Obviously, you've got the Citizens for Prosperity and Headhunters still there, still existing in Pyro, and lots of other minor factions technically. Someone asked, why can't we stay on the Frontier Fighters side? They want some factions to be enemy only, like Xenothreat. This is important as they want players to have some reputation risk-free combats, so you're not incentivized to join them or anything. You're just going to be fighting them as an enemy, that you're unified in your experiences fighting them as an enemy. Another reason was that they wanted to bring the faction choices from 3 in the previous step to 2 for supply or die. So they went, oh, let's make the Frontier Fighters the common enemy and go, ha, they were the slicers all along. It made sense for the evolution of the story. Are the other gangs of Pyro still intended to be there? So like the Fire Rats, the Overlords, and other gangs. Yeah, so they're still potentially coming. They will show up in the future when they have development resources to do that. That said, they've been focusing on fewer gangs with more character that feels significantly different from each other. This is true of companies and factions and the reputation system too. They're more focused on development of different factions that a player can have a longer term relationship with and can do missions for from system to system to system. Not always, rather than many smaller ones. That said, there will still be a lot of side and minor factions as well. A lot of them might be unified into a larger faction. Also, CIG did say they want players to discover stuff in games. Sometimes they will leave out content from patch notes and shows like Inside Star Citizen, so players can find that themselves, so bear that in mind. Why does it appear that criminal groups and outlaws like to live in very trash-ridden areas? Why can't they clean up their stuff? Typically, this is a visual cue for players that they're entering a less safe or seedy area. Why do criminals seem to borrow and steal so many large military ships like the Idris and Polaris and stuff like that every year? There's a level of suspension of disbelief that's needed. Obviously, this is to drive missions and stuff like that. It would be boring if they didn't have cool ships like that. Do you plan to focus on the other corporations of Stanton again? The corporations and like Crusader, that sort of stuff. There were issues with major landing zones and players earning negative rep with the main law and faction there. They were trying to minimize some issues that could occur with that, especially accidentally. So they don't want to lock players out of content. It was complicating things, having 4 factions control the Stanton planets, and those also be reputation factions. They're going to change this so they can be local factions that you can work with and earn money, but not necessarily have hugely long-term relationships with beyond the Stanton system or that local planetary system. Companies and security contractors like Foxwell are a faction that give out security combat missions as part of the 1.0 alignment. They're going to be giving out missions that the other factions previously would have, but under a more lawful security umbrella, if you see what I mean. So Foxwell might be hired out by Crusader Security or other security factions, so it's all under the same umbrella technically. This also allows you to have a longer term relationship with Foxwell and the security sort of agencies beyond just Stanton. They want these long term relationships to travel with you between systems, and you not have to sort of micromanage lots of different reps with loads of different factions constantly. Have we seen the last of Xenothreat? Probably not. Why aren't there more non-combat focused storylines? Well, the Regen Crisis B story that's currently happening has got a good amount of non-combat in it. You don't have to fight with a line of mine stuff when you're mining there. Supply or Die had salvage and mining. You didn't actually have to fight at all to do any of that gameplay, and we'll see more of that in the future. It's typically going to be mixed with the sort of combat and non-combat, and you can do different elements of some of the missions. Sometimes you want to group up, sometimes you'll want players to do the combat portion, and then you come in and do the non-combat portion. What are the THRUSTMASTER up to right now? So these are the bird people. Some THRUSTMASTER have left the UEE to establish a new homeworld. Some are trying to merge better with the UEE and actually make a proper run of it. The two factions are kind of at a bit of odds at each other as well. Datapads for storytelling. What's next? So they do want video logs, they do want audio logs, but datapads are easier, cheaper, and quicker to put in and hide in places, build lore and interest, but they want more. Comm scrolls are also being worked on at the moment, and you'll probably see some of this stuff in 4.1.1. Boom! That's it for your Star Citizen news today. I am super excited for Fleet Week coming up soon. 4.1.1 is also going to be pretty cool. And yeah, more story event, more good, more missions. It sounds like they are really building up a load of content this year and interesting events that are going to be coming out with each of these patches. Oh, what's that? You want to learn about some THRUSTMASTER joysticks? I recently played with the Sol R range, so effectively the Sol R2, which is hands-on stick and stick dual THRUSTMASTER sticks. I really liked them, but these are ambidextrous flight sticks. You can sort of set them up in left or right hand configuration that are focus built for space games, and they feel absolutely fantastic for Star Citizen. It feels like it was a stick built specifically for Star Citizen. Tons of buttons, very high precision, extremely high quality build. They are higher end sticks as well, and as such, if you want a high level stick, if you want something that is pretty good quality, you need to put the time into configuring these. You get a lot more out of hardware like this while you are fighting, while you are playing around in Star Citizen, going, I'm going to change these binds around, or I'm going to spend a day configuring my bindings and getting them the best they can be with this stick. If you do that, you're going to have a genuinely great time. There are links down below to check one out for purchase wherever you are. But also I've got a video on that if you are interested in a bit more of a deep dive into those. Please do bear in mind I am part of their affiliate scheme where I get a bit of a kickback if you buy a stick from them with my links. Also, you might be interested in our giveaway. We're giving away 3 Drake columns, one each to 3 different lucky winners. That little super mining craft. You can win one by just commenting on any of our videos made during April. They come with lifetime insurance and a gameplay package. One of them was given to us by CIG. Thank you very much for that. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the verse.